everyone, I'm Makeda. I'm with the Los Angeles Times. Please help me welcome again Sanaa Lathan. So I just wanted to jump right in and ask what
I am a thespian today. I dressed appropriately.
So what drew you to Nappily Ever After and to this role as Violet?
Well, I'm a real romantic, and I love romantic comedies. And it came to me a couple years ago when I hadn't seen a lot out there. It's like all of a sudden they weren't like cool anymore. A lot of the movies that I've done that have been super successful and kind of last throughout, you know, the years have been romantic comedies. So it was kind of a perfect fit, but I didn't want to repeat the same old formula. And I fell in love with Violet when I read the script. I loved the fact that this is kind of, I call it a modern day fairy tale. It's a new fairy tale for the modern woman in that it really is about falling in love with yourself as opposed to being chosen by a man. And isn't that modern? Isn't that, you know, where we should be going? Because if you're in a relationship and you're not in love with yourself, it's not going to work. And I also loved the whole hair theme, the whole hair idea. It's black women and their hair. I mean, we could do, you know, a whole series about that. And, you know, in this country, we have been told for centuries that we are not as beautiful, that our hair, our kinky hair is not as beautiful. And we've internalized that, and we have basically, I think, internalized it to be a part of our self-worth and our self-esteem. And I think it's time to erase that narrative and create a new one and really embrace our unique beauty. And this story encompassed all of that. And so, yeah, all of those things.
And so speaking of hair, can you talk about your own hair journey, your own hair story, and is it in any way similar to Violet's?
No, I actually, I have parents who are kind of like, you know, they're both in the business. My mother was in the original Alvin Ailey Company. She toured around the world, and I was like a toddler. She did the original Wiz on Broadway and Timbuktu on Broadway, and I was like a toddler toddling around. And she was a real hippie, like growing up, you know, as an adolescent. I'd be like, "Mommy, please put some clothes on." Like she'd be like, "Oh, it's just," she'd be walking around naked, you know, just like, you know, it's natural, you know, it's just girls coming over, you know. So I had like the mother who was like, you know, I wanted to get my hair straightened. She was like, no, you know, wear your Afro puffs. And she, you know, and so I didn't have that. It was actually the opposite. But I still am a woman in America. I'm still influenced by all those TV shows I saw and all the movies. I'm a movie lover. It's just now that we are starting to see movies reflect, just starting to see movies reflect the world that we live in. I used to always say that if an alien came to America and watched our movies, they would think that, you know, it was all white and male. And when I was coming up, you could count the working black actresses on one hand. And now I don't know half of them, and I love that. I love that there are so many of us working, I can't keep up. And yet there's still progress to be had. I'm loving what Netflix is doing with representation. I remember being kind of a little hesitant about it going to Netflix when, you know, because I helped develop the script, and just personally, because I just didn't quite get it yet. And yet it has been such an amazing journey with them. They have really gotten it. The marketing team has several black women on the team who get the movie and who were really behind getting that message out. And I just kudos to them for, it's the first time I've kind of felt that, where I didn't have to explain, you know, what something is. You know, it's rare to see a multicultural marketing team. Hopefully it won't be rare in the future, but yeah, so kudos to Netflix for that. I know I just kind of rambled all over the place. I didn't really, I don't even know what the question was. What was it?
No, I forget. But it was just if your hair story was in any way similar to the character you played in. So in the film, we see your hair go from it's straight and then it's relaxed and there's a weave and there's dyed and shaved off and then the TWA, teeny weeny afro.
I had to Google, by the way. I was tweeting and people were like, hashtag TWA, love your TWA. And I was like, what the fuck is TWA? And I Googled it, teeny weeny afro. Isn't that so cute? I just was like, so cute. I'm always the one Googling the little acronym things. Anyway.
But yeah, can you talk about what was the process for doing your hair all those different ways, and who was the hairstylist that you worked with?
Yes, I begged Larry Sims, who's kind of like a world-renowned hairdresser, to design the looks and to do the movie with me. It was, I was very lucky because he's so in demand, and he had never done a movie before, but we knew that we needed somebody who really could go, because we shot it in like 6 weeks, and it had to be, obviously, for budget, it was out of order. I knew I was gonna shave my head by the time we started shooting, so we had to strategically plan out the schedule, and I had to use wigs and my own hair, because it just wasn't going to work doing my own hair, having to shoot like, 7 scenes in a day. So, but I did dye my own hair. So from when I'm in the rain, that's all me, through that whole sequence to shaving, that's all me. And obviously after that, it's all me. And then as it's growing, we had to do wigs. And we had an amazing woman named Victoria who does a lot of big movies. She designed those wigs. And what was the question?
No, you answered it.
Wait, did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, what was that pinnacle scene where you shaved your hair off and you chose not to use like a bald cap or anything?
Yeah. So I was kind of attached a couple years before, and we were working on the script, and I was like, I am not cutting my hair. I am not cutting this off. I have, it's just, our hair, like you go get a trim and you're like, just a little bit, you know what I mean? And I even looked into bald caps and did research and, found movies and examples. I was like, if we invest this amount of money, then we can get a good one that looks real. And then as I started working on Violet and falling in love with her and digging into her world, I was like, how can I not do this? This is the strongest choice as an actor. This is the strongest choice, but also it's, this is entertainment, but it's important. I believe that, images are so important, and being reflected is so important, and this story was really important for women, and I just wanted to go there. I also happened to be in a place in my life where I was kind of exhausted, hair exhausted. I had, after 20 years of being in the business, and, every job, it's like, okay, now what am I going to do? Can I wear my own hair? It's rare that you wear your own hair. Like, all women of all races are wearing wigs nowadays because it's just hard on your hair. It's hard to keep it the same way for continuity if you're going back and forth. I worked in London a couple times. I didn't know the hairdresser. So I literally, part of my decision for the character was a wig so that I knew that they could work with a wig. And just, making your gym appointments around your, you know, your hair, getting your hair done. Like, it was just a lot of energy, right? We all know that, right? And so I was kind of ready. I mean, I was really ready. And I didn't realize how ready I was until after I did it. It was terrifying. I knew I was going to do it. It was also terrifying for the crew as well, because there was one take. It was one take. It's the pivotal scene of the movie. We had to get it right. So we actually did it like a week into shooting. We didn't do it chronologically. We did it early. And everybody had butterflies that day. I had butterflies the whole week. And going into the scene, I didn't make any decisions about what acting choices I was going to make. I just said, you know, I'm going to be, you know, I'll be in Violet before, and I'm going to step into the scene as Violet and just let it fly. And so I was, I really don't remember doing it. It was kind of like one of those type of things. But just watching it back, I was just amazed at all of the emotions. It was like, you know, it was just a rainbow of emotions. And it was so beautiful, because when the scene was, I called cut because, you know, I was done. It was 10 minutes. We shot 10 minutes of the footage. In the movie, it's 4 minutes. And all of the crew came into the bathroom and they were crying, and it was just great because it went well. You know, we were scared of the clippers getting stuck because we had done a rehearsal with a wig and the clippers got stuck, and I was like, what would happen if we did, you know? But it was, you know, it went smoothly. And I didn't realize until after we finished shooting that I really was loving it. The response, I kind of did like a little peek thing on social media, and people went crazy. And every ex-boyfriend I ever had was like, can I come rub it, you know? I was like, really? You know, wasn't expecting that. And I actually kept shaving it for a while. And then I did the affair, and once again, I asked them for a camera test, because, you know, if you go on to, you know, an all-white show, it's, you know, kind of smart, I think, to make sure they know how to light you, especially if you're going to be doing your scenes with somebody who is completely a different color than you. That's important. Anyway, they were gracious and did a camera test with me, and I went in, and I brought a long, beautiful wig that Kim Kimball made for me. And then I also was like, you know what, let me just test my bald. And it was like very low, very, very low. And I just knew they were going to say the wig. And I asked the crew, which was all pretty much young guys that day. And I said, what do you guys like better, knowing they were going to do the wig? And they were like, we like the bald. So I chose to do that for the affair, so it's been great. And I can go to the gym anytime I want. You know? Anyway.
And going back to something you were talking about earlier, can you talk about when you were first getting into the industry in the 90s and getting these roles? What was it like when it came to your hair when you were auditioning, or what were people expecting you to look like on screen?
Well, I definitely, the women in my generation and above, I can even see it now with some of my peers. I'm like, girl, you don't have to wear the fall. You don't have to wear the wig. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with wigs or weaves, because I just wore one for my last role, and I will wear one in the future. Obviously, like in the movie, I believe that it's a choice, but I also believe that something about my generation and above, especially actresses, we've kind of been conditioned to believe that you can't work without straight hair, or at least, you know. And it's interesting to see that people that are younger, there's so many girls rocking the natural hair, which I love. But yeah, coming up, there were several auditions I had, even when I would wear my own hair just pressed or, you know, blown out. Can she look more like her, you know, and her hair would be down to her back, you know what I mean? Can she come back in and look more like that? So there was that message being sent. Yeah.
And do you think it's gotten a lot better now, or where do we need to go to really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. Yeah, it's gotten better. I mean, I think I was just saying to somebody the other day, it kind of started with commercials. You know how in commercials, like a while ago, you started seeing people wearing their hair natural. You started seeing interracial couples, gay couples. Commercials started kind of representing first. And then it went to TV, and TV is starting to really look like the world that we're living in. There's a long way to go, but it's so much better. And then movies are, you know, come on, movies. Come on. You got to catch up.
And then what kind of reactions have you gotten to Nappily Ever After? Have people been going natural, or what have you?
Yeah, you know, the one thing I like about, just the one thing I like about social media, because it's such a headache for me lately, is that I get to kind of really see the real reactions of what people, you know, right in the moment. I just watch it, or I'm watching it now, or, you know, I'm gonna watch it this weekend. And I love that people are actually doing the big chop. People are sharing their stories of when they did the big chop. Apparently it's really, like women in Brazil are really responding to it, because there is a big Afro-Latina culture that's kind of been told that they're not as beautiful as the more European. And it's interesting with Netflix how it's kind of a snowball, because it's there, right? And so I'm starting to see, you know, of course, it's black women all the way in the beginning, and now I'm starting to see kind of how it's rolling out to other races. And, you know, this is really a universal story. It's about stepping outside of the box. It's about owning who you really are. So it's been really great. It's been exactly what I've kind of prayed for. Yeah.
And then why do you think it matters how a black woman wears her hair in a film or a TV role or something?
Well, I just think of like little girls. I think of, you know, if you look a certain way and you look at and you fall in love with a story or a movie, and you never see yourself, that's just so tragic and heartbreaking to me. I went to see Black Panther by myself. I was shooting on location, and I went to see it the opening weekend, and there was a little boy coming out of the theater. He was like 9 or 10, and he was like, "That was great, that was great, that was great." And he was white. And I was like, wow, he just sat there and watched this movie with all of these beautiful black queens, and he's like so amazed. And I was just like, the world that he grows up in is going to be so different for all of us. You know what I mean? And how, you know, it also made me sad for all the people who had to grow up in a world where you never saw yourself, in these modern day fairy tales, and these, you know, action movies and love stories and, you know, Marvel movies.
Great. I'm gonna read some of the audience questions that I have here. This one is from Greg. It says, at what point in your career, after which project or before which project, did you feel comfortable enough to say to yourself, I've made it?
God, I haven't gotten there yet. Isn't that horrible? That's such an actor answer, right? I don't know. I just, you know, I just think by nature of being human, you're always going to want more. For me, it's, I just, you know, I really love what I do. I think I give thanks every day for being able to do what I do. And I want to continue doing it, and I want to continue pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. I want to continue working with people who I respect and on pieces that I respect. And I feel like I have a long way to go with that. I mean, you know, there's a lot of faith involved.
The next one does not have a name on it, but what advice would you give to young Sanaa, both professionally and personally?
Oh, God, I hate that question. I should write it down. Oh, hi, Philip. I'm sorry. Oh, God. I would just say, just relax. You know, I'm a Virgo, and I'm very kind of, yes, you know how we are. We're so critical, but actually mostly critical of ourselves, and there's a lot of like overthinking, and I would just say relax and just trust a little more.
This one is from Groovy Gale. How difficult was it to, oh, we actually talked about this one, to do the big chopping character, and will you embrace your natural hair going forward?
Yeah, it's funny because Larry, I kept asking him, I was like, do you think my head is a good shape? And he was like, oh yeah, baby, it's good, it's good. And then once we finished the scene, he rushed in, he had tears in his eyes. He was like, oh, thank God, your head is beautiful. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, wait a second. I was like, you didn't know? He's like, I didn't know. So, so there was that. Yeah, and I didn't wear a wig until I just did an episode of The Twilight Zone, which I'm so excited about. I wore a wig for that, but it was like over a year. And I didn't think I was gonna do that. I have great wigs at home, and I was like, I'll just throw a wig on here and there, and I just haven't done it. So there is something really freeing about it, and I can't say how nice it is to go swimming and go to the gym and not go to the sauna and not have to worry.
This next one comes from Michael. It says, what's the most important lesson you've learned from making Nappily Ever After?
I think that with characters, you always bring parts of yourself because you can't help but do that. But there are also lessons that you inevitably take away. And for me, it has been parallel in that even just by going bald as a woman in Hollywood, that's kind of been stepping outside of my comfort zone and kind of owning my natural self. And so kind of owning and accepting me, which is a work in progress. You know what I mean? I'm still, you know, a woman. But there's definitely more of that after Nappily.
And do you have advice for doing that when you work in an industry that's constantly tearing you down? How do you work through that?
In my 20s, when I was auditioning and out here and dealing with all the things that we all deal with the constant rejection. I mean, people always think that, you know, the life that we live is just so glamorous, and, you know, they don't know how emotionally abusive it can be. The only way that I have survived is that I have always had a spiritual life. I've always had something. I had a life coach named Debbie Owens. She was amazing, and she kind of got me through my mid-20s to mid-30s in the business. I mean, I actually found her because I was in love with somebody, and I was trying to, you know, make that work. But it was great because I got to her because of that, but, you know, went on to really do some real, you know, spiritual work and working on myself. She actually helped me, you know, when I was auditioning for Love and Basketball, it went on for months and months and months, and they really didn't want an actor who they could teach to play basketball. They wanted a basketball player who they could teach to act. And so the only reason why I even got a shot at the audition is because I did a reading of it, a staged reading of it, like a year before she even had her deal. And so she couldn't, she says, you know, to me that she couldn't keep my reading out of her head. So she would always throw me in, but always keep throwing in these basketball players. But I had never played basketball, and I had to do my acting audition and then go across the street and do, like, you know, dribbles and layups, which I was like, it was ridiculous because I had never picked up. It was horrible. It was torturous. Everybody in my life was like, you know, they're never going to hire you. Like, this was after a long period of time. Just let go. This is becoming abusive now. And it was that coach who said to me, change the story. She's like, don't even go in wanting to win the part. Go in because you love acting. And with the basketball, just play. It's a workout. And as soon as I shifted that, I was able to hang in there, and I got the part. And I will just never forget that. And even after, you know, I've just always had something outside. And I always tell young actors, have, you know, somebody outside of your family, whether that's church, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a life coach, somebody to kind of help you stay balanced in this crazy business that we're in.
Love and basketball would not be iconic without you.
Oh, well, thank you, darling. Thank you.
Because of you and Omar. It's eternal. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's a good note to end things. Help me thank Sanaa one more time.
Thank you, guys.